Welcome, dear listener, to the Right Here, Right Queer podcast. Today I am joined by Trip Galey. Welcome.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Some people may recall that you were on the podcast before, so thank you for coming back. And today you've got something new to talk about with us.
I do. Today I'm talking about my new novel, The Fall of the House of Valenziaga, which I am kickstarting this time around.
So exciting. I see that it's a science fantasy. What is that like?
So science fantasy is one of those niche genres. It had a moment back in the late 70s, early 80s, but it's not something that has been as prevalent in printed fiction, at least. You used to see it all the time on film and television, especially in the 80s, like He-Man and She-Ra, totally science fantasy.
Oh, okay. I can vision it.
So honestly, the new She-Ra remake, because of that, also science fantasy. You look at that sort of thing, I'm sure a lot of our listeners are familiar with She-Ra, and you have the super science, but you also have the magic. You have both of them. They are existing simultaneously in the same story. It's not a one or the other proposition. And so often that is termed science fantasy, and it usually comes with associated characteristics or tropes such as, oh, I don't know, over the top or weird or bonkers. I believe one description that I really like that I saw, I can't remember where I saw this. It might have been the Encyclopedia of Fantasy and Science Fiction. Probably not. I don't think they would have said something like this, but the thing about science fantasy is functionally it revels in how batshit crazy it is. That's usually an aspect of science fantasy in my experience, and that's how I like to think of it. In a nutshell-ish.
So, with your book, give us a quick rundown, and does it have that batshit crazy vibe to it?
Yes. So I'm just going to dive in here, and it's going to get metaphysical and weird and conceptual, but also really fun, hopefully at the same time. So, The Fall of the House of Valenziaga is set in a world that I call Twixt. And the core idea behind Twixt is the city. Twixt is this city that floats in the abyss. It is beyond the edges of time and space, and the city is made up of pieces of worlds that have already been destroyed. So it's like a giant floating non-Euclidean mosaic sort of world. Each piece of, destroyed planet or reality or what have you retains a bit of its own sky. It retains its own metaphysical laws, but it all sort of fits together in this weird mosaic jumble of a city where the lines between all of these bits and pieces are the literal abyss. So if you take a wrong step, you could literally fall out of reality itself. But also you have this thing where it's you could be walking down a 19th century street from a destroyed sort of steampunk universe. And if you turn down an alleyway, that bit of street is shoved right up against, a piece of a destroyed space station that was as large of a planet. So you go from cobblestone to rusted slide walk and flickering holographic emergency signs. And it's just all of these things existing in a somehow harmonious, chaotic jumble. And that whole concept grew out of this very queer idea that as queer people, this is true for minorities all around the world and for people all around the world, but as queer people particularly, our world has ended so many times. If you look back, I am a child of the 1980s. I grew up in a world that was reeling from the absolute destruction of sort of the gay male community by AIDS. There was this wild, free, incredibly vibrant, sexually positive world that existed at the end of the 1970s, and AIDS came along and it wiped out a generation and it wiped out that world. If you jump further back, Berlin, before World War II, Berlin had this amazing, vibrant, free and accepting queer community growing within its streets. And then World War II swept in and absolutely destroyed that world. So that's on the broader level. On the more personal level, people have their worlds destroyed all the time. Relationships end. A beloved parent or partner or friend dies. People say it all the time, oh, my world ended when X happened. It can be really personal. And so I was completing my PhD and writing a novel at the same time because I'm terminally type A. and I was watching a ton of queer media at the time. I was watching Drag Race, I was watching Pose, I was watching Paris is Burning, and just that sort of idea of A, how as queer people we constantly have our worlds shatter around us, and B, as queer people, we have this tendency to take things that hurt us, to take trauma, to take hardship, and to turn it into art and to turn it into something beautiful. You see this all the time in the drag community, the trans community. Our whole like queer community has a tendency to take, hardship or the loss of a loved one or the end of a world and turn it into art. And that just sort of coalesced just instantly in my brain into this city. So it had to be science fantasy. It had to be over the top. It had to have all of that queer joy and pain and just sheer extra that sort of like sometimes comes with being queer, whether you like it or not. And it just coalesced into my brain as the city. The story sort of came with it at the same time. It's developed and it's changed and everything, but that is a really long, rambling sort of lateral answer to that question. I don't know how helpful or not that is.
No, it's so right though, and I feel like I've seen things along those lines as well. Like we've encountered our world ending so many times and having to start back over, and you just put all your passion and joy into it because the hope and the passion and the joy, like that's what they're trying to kill. And you can't ever kill that because we're just so resilient. And I really like that idea put into book form with all of those extra elements like the science fantasy. That's wicked cool.
Thank you. Yeah, well, it's like it's a famous quote that I'm going to absolutely murder, but again, it's from the 80s, and it's the whole, we went to funerals every morning, we protested all afternoon, and then we danced all night, and it was the dancing that got us through it. So it's that idea of like art and joy being the thing that carries you through the end of the world.
Like you say, it's relevant throughout so many different periods of time, but especially right now too, there's a lot of authors that are going like, what is the point? There's so many bad things happening right now. What is the point of putting out a book? Like, I just feel like this is so, tone deaf, and it's because people need that. So your book is coming at a perfect time.
I mean, I hope so. Honestly, I struggle with that as well. Like, it is really hard with like all of the stuff that's going on in the world and like the attacks on the arts functionally through like, tech oligarchy and all of that stuff. And like just like funding reduction and cost of living, just making everything more difficult. But yeah, it does help to write through it. It's really easy to like get into a mind space where you are trapped in that sort of like blah, but creating something, doing something, creating something, it can really help carry you through.
Absolutely. You said that this story, it was kind of the world and the location first and the story after. Is that normally how it goes with you, or was this kind of like a flip?
There's no normal for me in my experience in terms of how like things come along. Sometimes it's a world, sometimes it's a character, sometimes it's a story first. My brain is very chaotic. I'm very much a magpie writer. Things just strike me and I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And then I go rabbiting off after it. And then eventually I turn around and I'm like, oh, I have a novel. Whoops.
Magpie writer. I like that.
I find it so apt because like writing in general, everyone writes differently. Everyone's brain is different. And everyone's creative experience and creative process is different. So I always tell my writing students, be magpies. Find the shiny thing that works for you and take it. And if it doesn't work for you and it isn't shiny, leave it there for someone else. Because like, yeah, I've read so many books on writing and writing advice that people have sworn by and people have gotten so much use out of, and I've read it and I'm like, oh, this doesn't work for me at all because my brain works completely differently from this person's. But this one line, that's super useful. I'm going to keep that.
That's very true. So, would you say this book is much different than your other books?
If you want to get really, really technical, the first chapter, maybe it's the first 2 chapters of Apple Pies and Eldritch Skies, are actually set in Twixt. That is actually Twixt. I don't talk about it explicitly in those terms, and you don't see the wider city beyond the weird, strange, twisted version of a marina that the narrowboat is moored in at the opening there. But yeah, no, that starts in Twixt. So it's funny you bring that up.
Isn't it fun connecting your worlds, leaving Easter eggs?
I love Easter eggs so much. It's just like my brain needs to make those jokes. It needs to make those references and it needs to put those things in. There have been lines that I have come to words with my editors or my beta readers on, because they're like, this doesn't make any sense. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. That is actually a joke referencing this drag act from like 1973 that was actually big on the internet in 2002 for like 15 minutes. I'm like, 3 people in the world are going to get that joke. It's in there for those 3 people. It doesn't matter if everyone gets it or not. It makes me so happy to just like connections, the way they spark in the brain. It's just so pleasing that, yeah, no, I put in far more of those than I need to.
I love that for you.
In most cases, writing does not pay the big bucks, so you have to pay yourself in joy.
Exactly.
I love editors, I love beta readers. I could not produce books without either, because of the way that my brain works and because of the way I read and the way I write. I could not do this by myself. For me, writing is a communal effort. But yeah, it's still very much like picking and choosing what is working and what isn't, just like if you're picking and choosing writing advice.
So this book, is it like dark, or it seems like very high stakes at least?
Now that I've like rabbited on about the world building and the backdrop and everything, at the core of it, yes, it's got like, there's darkness there, but like, it's the sort of thing where it's like, if you look at most queer lives, yes, there's a bit of darkness and hardship sort of baked in because society can be so hostile to us so often. But it's there alongside, and it's all wrapped up in joy and fun and ridiculousness. If we're talking about the human sort of like aspect of the story, the core of the story there, yeah, no, it's the story of a young man who realizes that his mother is incredibly toxic. She does not love him. The only use he holds, the only value he has in her eyes is what he can do for her, how he can make her look good. And
Oh, that's so relatable.
Right? Oh my god. But like, that's the story. It's that human story of being like, oh, my parents aren't actually the superheroes I thought they were. My parents aren't actually the good people that I assumed they were, that society told me they had to be. You know, there is this myth in society, all mothers love their children. Like, that's great. It's a wonderful idea. It is manifestly neither true nor accurate.
Mm-hmm.
So at the core of the story, yeah, it's House of Valenziaga realizing that his mother, Vainglory, yeah, she doesn't actually love him. She is manipulative and she is controlling and she's beautiful and she's talented and she's successful, but she's also like a horrible person. And like, it's really hard for him to escape that situation. Both because, like, you know, it's really hard to escape family because of societal expectation, but also because she literally holds, like, his crystallized heart because magic and shit. So, yeah, no, the story is about escaping a toxic parent. But it's also set in a very queer, like a fundamentally metaphysically queer universe full of queer people. Every character in this book is queer. Every single one. Just queer people all the way down. So you have that. You have the queer society, you have balls, and you have roller derby, and you have just all of these amazing, fun queer things and weird queer characters all around. So yeah, there's a ton of like queer joy and fun and everything, but we are queer. Like, trauma doesn't always come with a package. I don't want to like overgeneralize to that degree, but for a lot of us, trauma comes baked in with being queer. So it's sort of the same with this book. It is fun and it is ridiculous, and there is magic and super science and like strange shifting metaphysical rules and like all of these bizarre locations. Like, one of the places I really, really enjoy, that I really enjoyed creating for this book, it's this dance club, right? And it's in a former church. The proprietor is a unicorn. But like, you know, he's got the coat that's sort of reddish white. So it's in a chapel and there's a roan unicorn.
Yeah.
You know, so like most of the locations are also either references to like queer culture in some way. All of the noble houses, the legendary houses, are some sort of reference to either queer experience or queer subcultures. Like, I have put as much queerness into this book as I possibly can. I have tried to inject it on absolutely every single level, and I have had so much fun doing it. It is just unspeakably delightful. A lot of the slang that I use is taken from Polari, which is the secret cant language that a lot of queer people spoke in London until it mostly died out about 50, 60 years ago. Ooh, no, actually close to 70 years ago now.
I've never heard of that slang that you were talking about. I feel like I need to educate myself on that.
Polari it's a very specific thing. It is very British, and it's more London than anything else, although it was widely used amongst traveling performers as well. In fact, you probably actually already know at least a few words in Polari. If you have ever referred to something as naff, that's Polari. If you have heard, I don't know, maybe on Drag Race, people referring to someone as trade or rough trade, that is from Polari.
I'll have to check it out. That's really cool, though, that you baked that in.
There are a couple of really, really good books on the subject. One of them is called either Fabulosa or Fantabulosa. It goes into like the history of the language. There's a famous British actor who just he would have been like I think actually today he would have been 100 if he were still living, and he was in I want to say BBC radio show called Round the Horn, and there were these two characters on Round the Horn called Julian and Sandy, very camp, very flamboyant sort of characters, and they often sprinkled in little bits of Polari because you could say really, really filthy things in Polari and it wouldn't get flagged by the censors. So they had a lot of fun with that. Round the Horn. It's definitely worth listening to some Julie and Sandy on Round the Horn if you can get your hands on it.
Yeah, I definitely will have to. So I feel like the answer's kind of apparent, but what is the one thing you want readers to take away from this book?
The thing I want readers to take away from this book is I want them to feel seen and to have a moment of queer joy. That's the main thing. It's like, there's so many fantasy books out there for majority experiences. And like, there are a lot of queer books out now and more books coming out every day, which is absolutely amazing. But I still carry the decades of reader trauma of not having that option. So I really wanted to go absolutely all out and make something just uncontrovertibly queer on every level, so that like hopefully anyone who reads it can like experience at least one spark of queer joy in the process.
I definitely think they will. It sounds so fun.
I have so much fun with this world. I have so much fun with these characters, and because I'm doing this one myself, I have given myself a lot more permission to be over the top and ridiculous and camp and fun. I am using my grandiloquent words a bit more. I'm being a little bit more florid, because often I will be describing like really bizarre, impossible places or like an amazing drag performance. And I'm like, drag is something where it's so visual and it's so over the top and it's so extra that I feel in trying to capture drag in prose that you have to mirror that expectation with the language that you're using. You need to tend towards the purple prose, the sort of like florid description, because that very over the top type of writing echoes, I think, so importantly or so well. I don't know. You can judge how well it works, but like, I just think it's such a beautiful harmony between the visual excess that you see in so many modern drag performances with the actual sort of verbal excess that you can get on the page.
Is this your first book doing on your own?
Technically, no. Like Apple Pies and Eldritch Skies was on my own. I did a novella called A Conspiracy of Roses, which is set in the same world as A Market of Dreams and Destiny. I did an interactive novel with Choice of Games right before I did A Market of Dreams and Destiny, and I released the novella as part of the celebration for the interactive novel, which was called Fairy's Bargain, The Price of Business. So I've self-published those two novellas and done like web fiction and like Patreon fiction and that sort of thing before. But this is the first time I have done a solo novel-length project. And it's certainly the first time I have done a solo novel-length project on Kickstarter.
What has it had been like for you setting up and doing the Kickstarter so far?
Oh my god, it's so much work. It is so much work. Now, I've done Kickstarters before with Bona Books by Queer Small Press. We did a Kickstarter for I Want That Twink Obliterated. We did a Kickstarter for Wrath Month. Both of those funded tens of thousands of pounds. They were very successful. They were awesome. They were a lot of fun. I did not have to do those Kickstarters by myself. There was the whole Bona Books team. So there are four of us right now. It is so much easier to do a Kickstarter with four people than when you've got one person doing the majority of the work. Kickstarters, crowdfunding campaigns, so often they live or die on your preparation. It's a lot of work up front. It is a lot of work during, and then obviously it's a lot of work after. It's not just because like you're producing a book entirely by yourself, but you have to go through all the Kickstarter compliance, you have to design all the graphics, you have to do all the sales copy, like you have to plan the tiers and the prices and cross-check your shipping costs, and like it's a lot of work. There are some wonderful and supportive communities out there. There's some awesome resources that can help guide you through it, but there's no getting around the fact that it's a lot of work.
It really is. I did one last year. It was my first one, and I did it by myself, but I had like advice and help from a couple other authors that had done it as well. Like, even with that kind of pre-knowledge, it still kind of surprised me just the whole month. It just felt like I was strung right out.
Yeah, it's exhausting. Things always take longer than you think they're going to take. There are always surprises and hiccups. It's the same with any sort of like, complex production schedule. But in this case, yeah, you're pretty much handling all of it yourself. Like, I wrote a blog post this morning. I'm going to have to write a second blog post after recording this interview. All of this is for the Kickstarter. And then this evening, I have to put together a fact sheet, sort of like promo for the fall of the House of Valenziaga, so I can send that out to someone who has very kindly said, "Oh, I will do a quick little news piece on the Kickstarter," which is awesome. But then I was like, "Oh no, I haven't prepared any press materials in case anyone asks.
I have to do my part. What is this?
So it's like, oh, I need to design a graphic, and I need to take like the description of the book, and I need to boil it down to one paragraph instead of 5, and like
That is the hardest part, I think, trying to sum it into like one few sentences. I hate it. Yes.
I embody so hard that Mark Twain quote, "I have written you a long letter because I do not have the time to write you a short one." My brain defaults to like the complicated $10 words. It's very, very difficult for me to like be concise.
So obviously people are going to be getting the book. What kind of rewards can readers expect? Is there any stretch goals that you're hoping to hit, or?
So it's a queer book, right? Obviously, we are going to have Clack fans as some of the like additional sort of like merchandise options that you can add on to the tiers. The basic thing is the book, right? So we've got the ebook version, the paperback version with hopefully a gatefold cover and some UV spot gloss, and then the hardcover version with, a nice dust jacket with the UV spot gloss and hopefully sprayed edges. Yeah, it's a queer book. There's a lot of drag elements, so I wanted a big Clack fan as an additional option and a pin badge. So the Clack fan and the pin badge will be House Valenziaga themed. So I've got like a house crest design that is going to be refined by my cover artist, who is Jamie from Cat and Crown, who does amazing book covers. I love his stuff so much. And I'm really, really excited about the cover that he's working on right now for the book. We had a meeting a while ago and we're like, oh, what do we do this? Maybe we do this. What about this sort of thing? And it's like, we've got like stained glass as like the major sort of like element, and like, I'm super excited. But yeah, we've got the books, and then we've got like the Clack fan and the pin badge. And in terms of stretch goals, since you mentioned stretch goals, the most important stretch goal for me is going to be the audiobook. I think audiobooks are amazing. I don't listen to a ton of audiobooks because for the audiobook to be quick enough for the way my brain's default speed, I have to speed it up, which sort of ruins the performance, and I really like the performance aspect of audiobook. So the audio stuff that works best for me is more sort of like audio drama stuff with like a big cast rather than someone reading a whole book to me. But audiobooks they're great. I used to listen to a ton of them back when I lived in the States and was driving everywhere. But they're so important for accessibility. The Market of Dreams and Destiny audiobook was done by Will Watt, who is phenomenal. Like, Will does not just read an audiobook, he performs it. He does voices and accents, and like, I love his work so, so much. And he would be my dream get for the deluxe version of the audiobook, should these stretch goals reach that far.
It really was so good. I listened to American Dreams and Destiny, and it was like an experience and a performance. It was wicked good.
Yeah, he's so good. Oh. Market makes me happy. Market's my firstborn. It's getting a new limited edition hardcover from Lit Pins & Co. And I have been seeing previews of the cover art.
And you're still alive and haven't perished?
It was a very, very near thing. It was such a near
Yeah.
thing. I am continually like flipping out because we are not quite yet at the spot where I can share the teases of the cover art. But oh my gosh, I'm so pleased with it, and so pleased with the work that Lit Pins and Co. is doing on this project. They're just being phenomenal.
I'll have to keep my eye out on it. I like to get like trophy copies of audiobooks I've really enjoyed, and that's one that's on my list, so I might just have to wait for that version.
It's worth looking at just to see, just maybe.
Yeah, just, test the waters. If you do a Kickstarter again, what would you do differently, or what have you learned so far with this?
I would absolutely start even earlier. Because I did start early, because I was like, oh, I've done this before. I'll need X amount of time. No, you need more time. You need more time than you think. Not just for preparation, but for anyone who is thinking about doing a Kickstarter, you really, really want to have your pre-launch page up and active for as long as you can possibly stand. Because while the pre-launch page is active, people can follow your campaign. They use a little button that says notify me on launch, and they can click that. That turns them into a follower of your project. And all of those followers get emailed the second it goes live. And that group of people, those people that have followed the campaign before it launches, that is going to be your highest converting group of supporters. And it makes such a huge, huge difference to your funding and your ending funding level. So starting early is very, very advantageous. So I would start earlier. I would start doing some of the promotion work that I was doing for Valenziaga. Should I do this again? Yeah, I would start earlier with the promo work, and I would start earlier with the design and everything, because everything always takes longer than you think. And the longer you have that pre-launch page up, the more followers you get, and the more followers you get, the better chance you have of funding, and funding fast. Yeah. Start early.
So would you say that's your advice to authors looking to launch on it?
Yeah, absolutely. We saw this very much in terms of Wrath Month. We had, I think we did a 30-day lead-in time for I Want That Twink Obliterated. And we had, I think we barely scraped over 100 pre-launch followers. We had 3 times as many pre-launch followers because we did 90 days before launch instead of 30 days before launch. And Wrath Month was very nearly triple the income that I Want That Twink Obliterated was. And obviously, not all of that is going to be down to the pre-launch followers, but it's very much a contributing factor. And to the fact that we funded in 6 hours, I want to say 6 hours on Wrath Month. Yeah, the followers definitely contributed to that. And you want to fund within the first 24 hours if you can, because Kickstarter projects that fund in the first 24 hours get more of a boost from Kickstarter's internal algorithm, which means more people who are already on Kickstarter and who already have in the past likely backed books will see your project. So yeah, it's a key, very important thing.
That's awesome. I remember the whole Wrath Month deal, and I knew it was quick, but I didn't realize it was that quick.
It was insanely fast. We were doing that completely bonkers. Oh, let's do like a 12-hour live stream. And I was anchoring the live stream, right? So I had my butt in the seat. I was staring at the computer screen. I was interviewing our authors back and forth. And because I was so focused on that, I'm really appreciate the fact that I was focused on that. I wasn't really like anxiously looking at the numbers going up, but because I was so focused on that, I every half hour I would finish an interview and I'd turn around and it'd be like, we've gone up X amount, da 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 da, and it'd be like, what? How is this happening? And it just went up so fast.
Well, I got my fingers crossed that this next one is going to have the same amount of success, if not more, because, exponential growth and all of that. And it sounds so fun. I know I'm excited for it.
I'm super excited for it. I really hope it does well. It's a bit of a challenge because, science fantasy is a much more niche genre than romantasy or epic fantasy or cozy fantasy, all of which do really well on Kickstarter and on social media in general. And obviously, it's a queer story, so it has a little bit more of a niche appeal in that sense. Obviously, I think everyone should be reading queer books, but not everyone agrees with me. But yeah, no, fingers crossed. I have done and am still doing so much preparatory and promo work that I really hope I am able to spread the word and get the funding. Not just for the book, but also, I'm an American. I'm living in the UK. My visa is up in November. Reapplying for indefinite leave to remain here in the UK, it's very expensive. So any extra from the Kickstarter is going to be going straight to making sure that Robert and I can stay here in the UK.
Well, where can listeners find out more about you or more about the campaign?
Linktree/Trip Galey. It's sort of the central place that has links to my website and my socials and the campaign and everything. I am most often, in terms of social media, most often on Blue Sky and Instagram. Although it's much easier to interact and talk on Blue Sky, I find, anyway. So I spend most of my time on Blue Sky in the social media sense. And that's just trip.bsky.social or whatever it is.
Well, you must have been early to be able to get that one.
Yes, I was very, very early. I want to say that I got a promo link from Mark Chadburn. He mostly does journalism stuff now, but he's written an absolutely amazing trilogy of trilogies that are sort of urban fantasy, but also what happens to society when magic comes back and there are suddenly literal gods walking around being like, no, you stay out of my enchanted forest, bitch. Yeah, so I really enjoyed his book. So I've been following his writing in general for a long time, and he just posted that he had some invite codes to Blue Sky way back in the day when it was still invite code only, and I was lucky enough to get one. So yeah, I secured a very simple handle.
I like it over there too. It's very chill, and I feel like, yeah, it's easier to engage with people without the whole algorithm thing. So
yeah, there's much less algorithmic shenanigans. There are an incredibly robust suite of block lists and other tools to keep your timeline minimally toxic, which I very much appreciate. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming on and chatting with me. This has been a great time, and I hope that the Kickstarter does well. And yeah, thank you again.
Thank you so much for having me, and I apologize for the massive sort of initial just flood of description.
That's what you're supposed to do here, though. You're supposed to talk about the things you love.
Supposed to bounce around and be excited about stuff.
Exactly.
Thank you for listening, and we'll be back next week with more Right Here, Right Queer.